Imagine being sent to the end as a shulker, with new places to investigate, insane loot to discover, brand new foes to take on, and a plethora of hearts. This is our most interesting challenge yet. I will need to reignite the Eternal Portal and defeat the Master of the Shadow Realm. Can I complete my goals? My name's BeanMinty, and this is 100 days as a shulker. Will I thrive? Let's find out. Day 1 was very peculiar. Shadow Walkers had already approached me, and with a few mighty blows I managed to defeat the nightmarish beast. Furthermore, I began gathering wood and stone to make a fresh set of tools, harvesting more logs with them, and whilst killing another Shadow Walker, I became blinded, so I knew I had to run. After escaping the Shadow Walkers, I had to get better gear and fast, so I immediately started mining for crystals, minerals, and ores. The first ore I had acquired was raw Thalasium, which was capable of making armor as powerful as iron, which would be imperative for the start of this journey. The following day, I was ambushed by phantoms. And towards the end of the day exploring, I built up to a jade cave. I made my way through the cave, stumbling across interesting new blocks and new crystals. It was also at this point that I begun harvesting ender shards. Later on in this 100 days, they would prove to be incredibly useful. And by the end of day 5, I had amassed stacks of ores. On my expedition through the Shadow Forest, I was collecting as many berries as I possibly could to keep myself fed for this 100 days, whilst coming across many strange structures. Traversing the dry shrublands, I discovered an icy star, which could be my source of water for this challenge. It was. On day 8, I stumbled into an end city and was under hellfire from my brothers and sisters. So after a few strikes, I scaled the tower and rightfully claimed my treasures that lay within. After reclaiming my end city, I got distracted mining slime trees since it was like ASMR to my ears, and I then continued to explore the lands in search for a place to finally settle. After traveling for such a long period of time, I decided to smelt my Thalasium to create tools and armor to complete my set. Once completing my gear set, I begun bridging towards a far out island, and once I reached the island, I created a shield and mined 64 flavolite. After venturing further into the island, I found another shadow forest and harvested as many logs as I could. I also found a weird structure in the middle of the forest with an ender block inside. Since I was traveling to find a place to live, I came across another end city and claimed the loot within. Over the course of the next 3 days, it was constant traveling until I spotted another end city in the distance. And after what seemed like days and days, I finally obtained the elytra. I took my first sleep with the elytra on day 20, and once I landed, I spotted another end city, I looted it, and I managed to get my hands on another elytra. When I tried to teleport to the mushroom treetops, a slime attacked me and an endermite spawned. Luckily, I managed to get out of that battle unharmed. However, I hit the enderman. 3 hearts! Oh no, I had to run. I needed health fast. So I drank my potions and fended off the beasts. I came across another end city, and I also located an amberlands biome. I spent day 24 traveling across multiple different biomes in this end dimension until I finally found the spot that I would flatten out and call home. The next 2 days were spent mainly mining, but also creating a little workstation with all of my items. On day 27, I was ambushed and chased by 3 endermen, and I had nowhere to turn. I had to frantically make a platform just to stay alive and to finally kill them one by one. On day 28, I noticed my food supply running low, so I decided to do some fishing. I ate some endfish to regen my health, and then I finished mining the flat area so I could start building my house. The next 2 days I was mining loads of trees to gather enough resources to start building my house. Once I had enough resources, I decided to work on the design and the framing of the house. I journeyed to the shadow forest to grab some shadow grass which would allow me to grow shadow trees at my base. I then decided to mine some logs whilst I was there, which would save me some time. Once I'd returned from the shadow forest, I decided to plant some berries down which would give me an alternate food source other than fish for this 100 days. I then started filling in the walls and testing different designs which would give me an insight into how the finished base would look. At the end of day 36, I begun smelting terminite ingots, which was just as powerful as diamond. Days 37 to 40 were all about construction. I was going to finish this house no matter what, and I was putting an absurd amount of detail into every single aspect of this house. And towards the end of day 40, I was waiting for this dragon tree to grow, and finally it grew and I was able to mine it to finish off the house. At the start of this week, I was mining the dragon tree, and once I mined it, I had stacks upon stacks of logs, which would be so handy for the future of this 100 days and also for the house. It was at this point that I realized that this massive tree would never ever decay because there were so many logs inside of the top of the tree, which meant I would have to use a hoe and destroy the entire tree manually, which would take a super long time. And after going through almost 3 terminite hoes, I managed to destroy all of the logs inside of the tree. After completing most of the house, I decided to tidy up the surrounding area and also catch some fish so I wouldn't be starving in this 100 days. At the start of this 3-day construction work, I finished the roof, the porch and deck area, lit up the houses surrounding, and transferred all of my belongings inside. For some crafts I needed to do to get some way better items and gear, I had to find amber ore, which was only obtainable in the Amber Lands. On day 56, I was just mining for amber ore because I needed a lot of this for the crafts that I wanted to do. After turning my raw amber into amber gems, I made some Eyes of Enders and made pedestals to set up a ritual area outside of my base where I made better armor. On day 60, I started getting charcoal, bone meal, and paper so that at some point later in this 100 days, I'd be able to make fireworks. The next 2 days, I found a new end city and collated some more loot, including shulker boxes, to be able to take on my journey to find an eternal portal. To make fireworks, I needed one more ingredient, sulfur, and this thing took me so many days to find. The one biome that took me over 10,000 blocks of traveling, and I finally found it, but the only problem was I had to make my way back home. After traveling for 2 days, I grabbed my shears and started mining as many leaves as possible so I could make as much bone meal as I could when I got back to my base. Whilst making my way through the shadow forest, I came across this weird tree house that had loads of bookshelves in. And after taking all of the bookshelves, I encountered some more phantoms, which was exactly what I needed because I needed more phantom membranes in order to upgrade my elytra. And on day 74, I managed to fly all the way back to my base with barely any elytra durability. I started the ritual, and now I had a crystallite elytra which gave me a buff and is also super strong, and to end the day, I made gunpowder. On day 76, I created a bunch of fireworks, and then I also set off on my first flight journey towards an Amberland. Once I arrived in the Amberlands biome, I mined a bunch of raw amber in order to create a bunch more amber gems, which I'd use to craft more things using the rituals. Once I arrived back at my Ender Fortress, I made a bunch of end crystals which would allow me to create eternal crystals. The next 5 days was spent traveling in order for me to find an eternal portal which would allow me to go back to the overworld and get some more resources. And finally, after 5 days, I found it. Once I stepped through the portal, I was already in a cave in the overworld, so I immediately got to harvesting resources that I could not previously obtain in the end. I spent the next 5 days traveling back to my base, but also coming across some incredibly strange biomes, such as the neon cactus biome. This one looked insane and I had to grab some. Once I made it back to my base, it was time for the final preparations before the Ender Dragon fight. Whilst I was flying in towards the End Island to face off with the Ender Dragon and complete my 100-day journey, I made a quick armor swap with my elytras, and this could be the end, but I had no choice but to fight. And with one last mighty blow, I defeated the master of the Shadow Realm, the Ender Dragon. On day 100, I swiftly grabbed the dragon egg, and with all of that, it was finally over.